Jesus says in Matthew 7, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the way that leads to life, and only a few find it. My name is Dr. Bill Payne. I am the pastor of First Methodist Church in Live Oak. A few years ago, my wife and I were hiking in a place that has a lot of trails. And it was getting late at night, and some of those trails go way out into the woods, into the wilderness, and it's very easy to get lost in this maze of trails. It was getting dark, and we were coming back, and we were on the trail that was marked to the parking lot. And it goes through an open area, and ultimately it leads back to the parking lot. It's about a 2 mile trail. As we were coming toward the parking lot, we met a young woman and her young child, and they were going in the other direction. Since it was getting dark, I said to them, ma'am, are you sure you want to be going this way at this time at night? Because it's going to be dark and it's very hard to find your way around, even in the daytime. And she was telling me that she was on a day hike and they had been out there lost for 3 hours and they had run out of water and the child was very hungry. Fortunately, my wife and I had extra water and we had snacks, and that little child ate a whole bunch of food and they drank water and they were very happy. And then I said to her, ma'am, you're on the wrong path. You need to come with me. You need to go back to where you were supposed to be. And so I took the child and I put the child on my shoulder, and the lady walked next to my wife and I, and we talked all the way back to the parking lot. And she was very thankful that we had intervened and helped her to turn around and go down the right path, the path that leads to the parking lot. Ultimately, I discovered that her husband was a student of mine at the seminary, which even made it better. So her situation is an illustration of what Jesus is talking about. He's saying that there is a gate and that there is a way that leads to destruction. And if you go through that gate and walk on that path, it's going to lead you to Apollyon, to destruction. There's another gate that's a smaller gate, and it's a path less traveled. And if you go through that, it's going to lead you to life. You see, Jesus contrasts the way to destruction and the way of life. And everybody has to make a decision on which path they want to travel. The path that leads to life is the path that leads to Jesus. In John 14, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He is the path that leads to life. There's a path that leads to death, and it is characterized by darkness. It is characterized by sin. It is characterized by the devil. In First John, John makes a big distinction. He says there are the children of the devil and there are the children of light. There is the path that leads to death. There is the path that leads to life. There are people who live in the darkness and there are people who live in the life. There are people who keep God's commandments and are a part of the life. And there are people who follow the way of darkness and they belong to the night. When the Bible presents these two options to us, it tells us that we have to choose to go down the right path. We do that by reading the Bible and hearing the truth. Jesus says he is the truth. And that truth sets us free because it enables us to realize that there is a bad path and there's a good path. And in the end, we're responsible for the path that we choose to travel. We can't blame someone else for us when we choose to travel down the wrong path, because we have to answer to God on the day of judgment for the path that we chose to travel. And if we travel down the path that leads to destruction, we will inherit destruction. That is the reward for the path that we traveled. Now, I want to finish this by telling you, we had some hurricanes come through last year where I live here in Live Oak. And afterwards, many of the signs, the street signs were blown, and some of them were turned and pointing the wrong way. And so it may have been a road that would have said one thing, but the road that was now being illuminated was actually a different road. And it was the wrong name for that road. And if I followed the sign, I would have been lost. There are people who try to disguise the way of death by calling it the way of life. And when people put up wrong street signs in order to disguise where they really go or to deceive people in this world, we need to correct that by having the map in our hands. The Bible is the map. It shows us the way. It teaches us the truth. And we have to be able to discern the right way from the wrong way. As you enter this phase of your life, I pray that you will choose to go down the right way. God bless you.